Welcome to the Thrive Master Show, where the focus is to reverse engineer action-taking impact makers. On this episode, we have Jeremy Neves. As a founder, investor, and consultant, Jeremy spends his time starting and scaling businesses and teaching others to do the same. In 2009, he founded Excite Satellite, which employed 1,000 plus individuals over a 10-year period, generating over $70 million in sales before making a successful exit in 2019. Today, when he's not found working on a business, he can be found working on his other two passions in life, his family and saving trafficked children.
Jeremy, welcome to the Thrive Master Show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you.
Wonderful. First off, I want to say that I effed up. I forgot to record our last meeting, and I appreciate you coming on again.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I understand. Stuff like that happens all the time. In fact, I had a call this morning, and for my mastermind, I streamed it on our Facebook group, but I forgot to hit record myself. And about halfway through, went, oh crap, I forgot to record this. So at least I had the Facebook Live. So I understand it can happen.
Wonderful. Glad that you're able to forgive me for that little hiccup. Now, speaking of failure, how do you deal with failure now on with the success you have versus the failure you had maybe coming up towards your success?
Yeah. That's a great question. So, look, I mean, I'm sure there's moments where, I'm probably more proud with the way that I handle it and times that I'm less proud of that. But, the biggest distinction that I would say is transitioned over my time, and the more years that I've had in failing and experience and everything else, is that younger me, when I failed, there was this element of embarrassment and shame and maybe hesitancy going to do the thing again. But the more that I've experienced certain failures, the more that I've transitioned from this belief that it's not necessarily a failure, it's a learning, and it's a necessary step. Because look, I know this about myself, is I'm not somebody who is the smartest guy in the room. I never have been. I've never felt that about myself. But what I've always prided myself in is somebody who's willing to go and willing to try. And when you're somebody who's willing to just show up and put it out there and try and win with your effort, you have to be prepared for failure. You're not going to hit it right every single time. And so I'd say that the biggest difference is this transition of changing failure from a negative thing to a positive thing. It's learning. And the more learning I do, the more knowledge I have, the more experience I gain, and the more successful I am at actually getting to the end goal that I'm reaching for.
Wonderful. Related to failure is, I guess, fear, because you mentioned you were worried about what other people might think, et cetera, et cetera. Was there a moment where you faced fear and you overcame it?
Oh, I'm sure there's a number of experiences, and let me just try and link into one. But truly, I mean, I would say that that's a daily thing of recognizing, man, there's something I'm worried about here, whether it be not being prepared for something. There's this element of not knowing, and there's fear around that, not knowing what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. A big experience, I guess I could say, with fear. Well, let me tap back into the question again. Your question on fear was what? Was there a time that I had fear and I faced it and came out on the other side?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, back to that, there's dozens and dozens, I'm sure, of moments, but one that comes to mind is, I've shared with you, getting involved in this cause against child trafficking. And look, when I first started and got involved with the group, I didn't know what I didn't know. I saw a really important cause and a really something that was very dear to me and very important to me, but I didn't know how everything was going to play out. And something that was absolutely terrifying to me was going in and trying to help rescue these children, and flying to another country. There's obviously a bunch of training and preparation, everything else that went into this, but flying to another country and infiltrating trafficking, a trafficking ring, and with the purpose of freeing these children. I was absolutely terrified and didn't know. You can plan as much as you want, but you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what could be on the other side, and what could come of it. And yet you go anyway. And I think courage is not the absence of fear, but the presence of it, and continuing to move forward anyway. And so it took a lot of courage, but I can tell you that on one hand was one of the scariest things that I ever did. On the complete opposite side, it was the most fulfilling experience that I've ever had in my entire life. Once we made it through, we succeeded. We were able to rescue the children. Nobody was harmed. And it was by far the most fulfilling thing. So yeah, I've seen and experienced the dichotomy of having fear, but still taking action. And it usually is the greatest moment on the other side.
Now, I wonder if you can make a connection with the fear when you make it all about yourself. For example, you're worried about how you will be perceived versus the fear of a bigger mission, which you were willing to face and fight the sex trafficking and be a part of that.
Yeah, you're saying make the connection between the two. What's the difference when it's about yourself versus somebody else?
Yeah, is it easier to kind of like face it and move towards it, and because it's a bigger mission beyond yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean I feel it's a lot easier to move forward when it's somebody else, when it's bigger, when it's bigger than you. Absolutely. Than when it is your own self. Now, when it is your own self, you also know yourself better. And so for me, the challenge and the opportunity for me has been when that fear just involves me. If say it's, wondering what people are going to think of you, or how well you're going to perform when it just involves you. It requires checking in with myself and knowing like, okay, well, here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm not good at. And all I can do is be the best me. And at the end of the day, there's that growth and learning that comes as well.
Wonderful. Now, we've talked a little bit about failure, fear. Now, let's talk about a fun moment where you helped a young 5-year-old move closer towards driving a Lamborghini or getting a Lamborghini, and you met him and you gave him a chance to experience this. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's kind of a wild story and wild experience. Shared a number of times. So there was this young boy, and this was just a few months ago, kind of earlier in the COVID, quarantine. A lot of states were locked down. People weren't out and about. I think that's relevant for the fact that that's why this, kind of spread like wildfire. There was a lot of negativity going on in the world. And there was this young boy, he's 5 years old, you can imagine. And he had this dream of owning a Lamborghini. He loves Lamborghinis. He gets on YouTube. He watches YouTube videos all the time of Lamborghinis. And he's always asking his parents for one. And obviously they're not about to get him a Lamborghini. He's 5 years old, can't even drive. But one day his parents are gone. His older sister is watching him, and she fell asleep. She was taking a nap. And this young boy went to the counter. He grabbed the keys to the family car. He hopped in the driver's seat. He pulled the seat all the way forward. With $3 in his pocket, he set out from Utah, heading towards California, because all the Lamborghini videos he saw was Lamborghinis in California. And he hopped on the highway, 65-mile-an-hour speed limit, and was heading south towards California to buy a Lamborghini. And a highway patrolman spotted him going 32 miles an hour in the 65-mile-an-hour speed limit, and pulled up behind him, turned the lights on. He didn't pull over, turned the siren on, and he actually pulled over. And to the highway patrolman's surprise, he goes up to the door and finds this 5-year-old boy and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm going to California. I'm going to buy a Lamborghini."
Wow.
And just absolutely wild. And they take him home, and obviously he's punished, and his parents are, grateful that he's okay, but, super upset of all the things that could have happened. And the news gets a hold of this, and it just goes bonkers. And there's all these articles out there of, what this crazy story, and luckily nobody was hurt. And somebody sent that message to me. And it was a friend of mine sent it and said, "Hey, I could see you doing this." And I was like, wow. I mean, I do like to set out on adventures and things, but I was 12 years old when I first took my parents' car. He had me by half and then some. And, but I was inspired by it. You know, my reaction was, wow, this young boy, like he went after what he wanted. He had a dream. And yes, you know, you're not supposed to break the law, and you're supposed to listen to your parents and everything else. But like the skill sets of success that he showed, that he demonstrated, inspired me. An entrepreneur that's going to have success in life is going to have a big vision, and he's not going to listen when people say you can't have that. And they're going to find solutions. And so, you know, he brought the seat all the way forward. He was only going 32 miles an hour on the freeway because that's as far as his foot would reach on the gas pedal. Had he been able to go further, he'd be going 65. I mean, this kid, he was ready to go after what it was, and he didn't let anyone tell him no. And then also what's important about, you know, a successful entrepreneur is they start before they're ready. They don't have all the answers. And so all of these things inspire me as an entrepreneur to go, man, this guy is going to be successful someday. And he had a dream and he went after it. He failed. It was maybe a little misdirected, a little premature, but you know, I had recently purchased a Lamborghini a few months prior to that. And I understood, you know, wanting something like that since a young boy. And so I reached out to the family and was able to go and meet him and take him for a ride in the Lamborghini, bring his dream a little bit closer to him and show him that, hey, even though it didn't work out this time, here you go. Like, keep going after your dream, keep inspiring people. And it was a really, really cool experience for me and for his family.
Now, what advice would you have for his parents? Because they can go one way where they can just punish him and just like take away this dreaming ability. You know, what would you say to them, and how to nourish this entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, it's a tough spot, right? Especially given that this was so public. The news got a hold of it, and so now you've got every Karen keyboard warrior giving their opinion, and so a lot of people are saying, hey, you know, these parents should be punished, you know, called child services, and you got parents that are going, man, I really want to make sure that my children don't get hurt, that we protect them and that we teach them. And I think that's very important. Our role as parents is to teach our children and to educate them. And we don't want their dreams to go away. And so my advice would be, look, educate the best way that you know how of what was misdirected, what could have been done differently, and try and help the child understand, you know, the reason for your concern, and making sure that they don't get hurt, and that they, you know, that they don't put mom and dad in a bad spot with breaking the law, things like that. At the same time, doing all of that with in mind my big picture, what I want most. And as a parent, the way I want to parent is I want my children to know that I love them and that I support them and that I want them to go after their dreams. And so how can we do that in a way that doesn't, you know, deter you from going after them, but also doesn't support you breaking the law? And by showing them love, by helping them understand what was wrong, but also that dreaming was not wrong, and that, you know, being creative is not wrong, and focusing on those things that you want. I think that's what I tried to do as you know, how I would have parented. That's what I did by showing up and giving them a ride and saying, hey, you know, you're going to have chores and you're going to do a lot of extra chores, and it's not going to be fun, so that you learn that lesson. And like, let's go for a spin and let me show you how really awesome it is. And that one day you are going to have this, you are going to experience this.
Now, you mentioned the kid portrayed some fundamental skill sets, and one of them was dreaming. Can you take us back towards your dreaming of attaining your success? Yeah.
Look, when I was a young kid, you know, I would say a little older than 5, but that kid started so early. That was what inspired me. Is, you know, I grew up in a neighborhood where, you know, kids got a car given to them when they turned 16 years old, and you know, but that wasn't the case. Our parents really, you know, they probably could have, but they really focused on you got to work and you got to earn it. And so, you know, from a very, very young age, I was able to see people that had toys, you know, motorcycles and boats and cars and houses and stuff like that. And it inspired me, and I wanted those things. I wanted to have those experiences. I was always dreaming about moments, experiences, something fun. Um, and so from a very, very young age, I was going after and trying, with that dreaming, and then also this, desire to work hard, instilled in me by my parents. I was always going out and trying to find ways, whether it was doing odds and ends jobs for the neighbors, or, finding ways to generate money. And I had neighbors that would always highlight, hey, you're going to do something, because I was always knocking on their doors with some idea, with some, some way to add value to them so that I could receive value. I think I resonated with that young boy, that I, not super typical things, but I would find random ways. I mean, I had one neighbor, I'll tell you the story, older gentleman, they lived on the golf course, their backyard backed up to the golf course. I made a regular thing to just come over and I wanted to just be there, because one, there was, it was fun. They had an elevator inside their house. So I'd knock on the door and they'd take me for rides in their elevator and give me a soda. And then I learned that he had golf balls that got into his backyard. And so I'd come by and I would collect golf balls that he had in his backyard. I would go and clean them. And then I'd go out in front of the golf course and I'd sell these golf balls to golfers that were going in. And so, I mean, random stuff, but I was always trying to find a way so that I could go after and accomplish these goals that I had.
Now, another fundamental skill set the kid portrayed was starting before he was ready. Now, was there something where you started before you were ready? Maybe starting your company, shifting away to a new project, or whatever it might be?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's been the key determining factor in every success that I've had in business. Again, back to this knowledge of I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I don't know everything. I don't know what I don't know. And so naturally, with that belief and understanding, you're always starting before you're ready. Every project I've ever done. And so look, when I, back to when I was, 8 years old, knocking on this guy's door to get golf balls, I didn't know the right pitch. I just showed up. And then from there was able to see opportunities and learn and grow and try and fail and learn and start over again. And so, my first business and I would say my first, bigger business that I did a ton of businesses growing up, but, I spent a year working for another company, doing door-to-door sales, and I learned a lot, but I knew the sales side of it. I didn't know the operations side of it. I didn't know the financial obligations. I didn't know all of those things. I didn't know what I didn't know. But I just showed up and started. I had a partner and was smart enough to find people that, had other knowledge and experience, but I started before I was ready. And had I not, I would have either once I knew everything that was involved, I think I probably wouldn't have started because it would have seemed daunting, and two, it would have taken so long to know everything that by the time you start, you're too late, so that's a principle that I think will always be true, is you got to start before you're ready.
Now, the other thing that seems to be true is whenever you go towards something, you might get help along the way. Your example was, you showing up and wanting to give him a ride. Yeah. Can you talk about a story with your friend where he had a goal of making $1 million in a day, and then people stepped up and helped him as well?
Yeah. So I have this belief that the bigger your vision is, the more support that shows up. Sometimes we don't put this big vision out there because we don't want to, we don't want people to either judge it, or we think that, people will laugh at it or whatever else. But I've seen the complete opposite. When somebody has a really, really big vision, like this 5-year-old boy, or like my friend who had a vision of doing $1 million in one day of sales. When they have that big of a vision, more people are like, wow, I'm inspired by that. I want to support, I want to see you do that, because that's big to me. That to me is incredible. And so, yeah, this good friend of mine who owns a e-commerce business, and, up until this time, the biggest single day I think they had was about $150,000 in a day. And in a staff meeting, my friend let everyone know that he had a goal of doing $1 million in a day. And everyone was like, wow, yeah, that's cool. But some people kind of thinking he's crazy. There's no way that's going to happen. but he didn't stop talking about it. He continued to bring it up and set the goal, set the date, wanted to do it on Black Friday this last year. And then just started talking about it online. Went on to create a community where he was sharing, here's all the struggles that we're dealing with, here's the problems, here's how we're overcoming them, and here's our goal, and letting people be a part of the journey. And what happened is more and more people got bought in. We're cheering for them. We're offering solutions, and including myself. I followed up with them every day on how things were going, and the day of, they were just churning out numbers, and I was getting messages about every hour saying, we hit 100,000, we hit 200,000, we hit 300,000, we hit 400,000. And it was like 9 o'clock at night, 3 hours left in the day, and they were about $200,000 short, if I remember correctly. And that's no small feat. That's more than they'd done in an entire day prior to this. But inspiring as to how far they came. And so I showed up at his office, and wasn't the only one. A number of our friends showed up at their office and just started calling people. I mean, calling people in my phone book and saying, hey, you need this product, you need this product, and offering their products and helping them. And when the clock struck midnight and they did their final count, they had done $1,100. It was literally every single cell counted, and had they been one cell short, they wouldn't have hit that number. But together, collectively, I mean, you should have seen that place erupt. All of their employees, all the people online, all of the people who bought the product felt like they were a part of helping a vision come to reality. And since then, $1 million a day is no longer like the goal. They're going to have multiple days in a row of $1 million this year. They'll probably have multiple $2 million days this year. And it's really cool to see when you have a bigger vision, more support shows up to help you, and then the sky's the limit.
Now, when you're starting out as a young kid, a 5-year-old, starting out towards success, it seems like you can do a lot by yourself. But at a certain point, just like with these examples where people showed up around them, having the right people, having the right friends, it seems to be a big key to success moving forward.
Absolutely. I think that, we're responsible for, our vision and our desires and what we want. And then it's through other people that stuff comes to reality. And so surrounding yourself with people that support you, that want what's best for you, and being that kind of person yourself is kind of how you attract those people to your circle, is by being somebody who is supportive, who believes in people and wants what's best for them, and inspires and pulls. And I think that's the key. I don't think that anybody in this world is a self-made. I understand the sentiment. I understand what's being said there, and there's some honor in that, but I truly don't believe that anyone is self-made. We don't do this alone. Our success really does come through the support of other people, and that's what makes it more fun anyway.
Now, last few questions. What was the fuel when you were at the beginning of your success versus the fuel now? What gets you going?
Yeah. So I would say at the beginning of my success, at the beginning, younger ages, you talk about my dream is kind of like the 5-year-old. It's like, I want a Lamborghini. I just want to have fun. I just want this experience and these things that you don't have. That there was a very profound experience that I had, a very, profound learning, I would say. And I share this with a lot of people. My 30th birthday, all growing up, I had this goal that, be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. I'd, have this, I'd have a house, I'd own a business, I'd be married, I'd have a kid, whatever else. All of these things when I was younger, it was by the time I'm 30. That was the measuring, that was the scale that I was measuring on. And what's crazy is my 30th birthday, it was the most depressing day of my life. And it wasn't depressing because I hadn't accomplished those things. It was actually depressing because I had accomplished every single one of them, but I didn't feel any different. And that was profound for me to realize that I thought that those things were going to make me feel worthy or better or whatever else. And it wasn't the thing. It was I had to learn how to ask why I wanted that thing. And what I really wanted was to be fulfilled. I wanted to have made a difference, made an impact, but also experienced freedom. And the things that I was desiring, I still wanted, but I didn't want them at the cost of freedom. I wanted them because they represented freedom, and not having to sacrifice that. And so over time, what drives me now, with that learning, is freedom to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. And what I want is, I want to make a difference. I want to have an impact. I want to do something meaningful. I also want to have neat new experiences, and do it with people that are inspiring to me, people that I enjoy being around. And when I want, like, all the time. I want it to be all the time. I don't want it to be, oh, you've had too much fun, now you got to work, or you've done too much work, now you got to have fun. Like, I want to be able to do the things that are pulling me in those moments, and be able to make a difference for other people. So that's the transition that's happened over time. And I think it's Tony Robbins that says success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And that really, really landed with me, is that, you can go and achieve a lot, but if you're not fulfilled, it really is for naught.
So how are you making an impact today? What are you doing? Is it different than running a business? Is it more one-on-one? Is it seminars?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit there. So you're saying what I'm doing today for fulfillment, correct? Yeah. So one of the things that I'm most passionate about is coaching. I've been, I've had a lot of experience in personal development, in relationships, growth in relationships and connections, but also in my career. And so for me, what's been very, very fulfilling is documenting the things that I've learned, the experiences that I've had, and sharing those with people, maybe others that are not as far along in the personal development or business development that I've had to experience. And so being able to have those one-on-one calls, I do. So, I have a group mastermind with clients. And so for me, that's one of the most fulfilling things that I'm doing right now, is helping other people tap into their true genius and recognize their gifts and become more consciously competent, and then using those tools to go and serve the world. And so that's something that's extremely fulfilling to me. Making sure that I take the time to do the things that matter most to me, time with my family, growing my family, and then spending time with those that I love, connection, relationships. It's all very, very fulfilling to me. And through business, I mean, every time that I grow and go to another level or learn new things, I'm working on a few different business projects right now that are new, and they're stretching me and they're challenging me. And through that, it's very, very fulfilling to set out with a goal and to achieve that goal, and to learn along the way. And I'd say those are all ways that I'm really growing in my impact and having more fulfillment in my life.
Finally, Jeremy, the work that you're doing with the sex trafficked, where can people find more information about that, and where can people follow you?
Yeah, so the organization that I'm heavily involved with is Child Liberation Foundation, and their website, I believe, is liberatechildren.org or liberatedchild.org. There's tons of information there and ways that you can support the organization. The key that anybody can do is bringing awareness to it. There's just not enough people talking about it and understanding that this is a huge problem. There's the second largest criminal, or the fastest growing criminal organization in the world. And so that's where you can find about it. Would love you to join the fight in helping eradicate sex trafficking and slavery. And you can find me on my website is jeremyneves.com. Neves is 7 spelled backwards, which makes it easy to remember. And from there, there's links to all of my social platforms, and you can interact with me there.